Just a little bit of relaxation and entertainment. Um, Wish I could give everybody a glass of whiskey, but I don't have it with me. Just before lunch, so hallelujah. I could actually just go off on a tangent, which I've been told not to, because to gloss Dr. Porrick Travers and others. It is just a one. Give me 1 second to say it. Is an extraordinary hegemony. The Anglo-Irish, the Irish. I just love swimming around all this history. I need to warm up, so let me do some Percy. Have to do different accents as well, so if you think I'm crazy, I'm crazy. There was Mr. Dennis Docherty, who kept the running dog. There was little Crooked Paddy from the Tirralocket bog. There were boys from every barony, and girls from every art, and the beautiful Miss Brady's in a private ass and cart. And along with them came bouncing Mrs. Cafferty. Little Mickey Mulligan was also to the fore. Rose, Suzanne, and Margaret O'Rafferty, the flower of Ardnagullion and the pride of Petravore. If I had a drum, you could feel the rhythm, coming out of the lyrics. And I just want to introduce the Spa Cottage publishing people are here. Pamela Brown, her sister Yvonne Brown. They're horticulturalists, they're herbalists, they're practically alchemists. And Pamela Brown is involved in opening up a publishing house. This is, of course, nakedly commercial. What the heck? Some of their titles are The Irish Percy French, John Boyle O'Reilly, Definitive Selected Poems, The Selected Poems of Jane L.G. Wilde, Oscar Wilde's mother, the Poems and Prose of Susan Langstaff Mitchell, George Russell, A.E.'s Candle of Vision, and Pamela Brown's latest work is The Age of Narcissism. Interesting. So I've got 32 slides, and I'm going to watch the time and shoot through. I'd like to dance a jig. I might. I can just jump through very quickly the biographical material. You're all very welcome. And 16th Percy French Festival. Those of us who are rambling around festivals in Ireland, some festivals come and they go. This one is 16 is like, bravo, bravo, fantastic, isn't it? This is down to some of these people. Let me read out to you these people's names. We have Pauline and Kevin Finnerty. We have Angelina Nugent. You can't just get these tents up and you can't get these festivals running, as people know, without a lot of legwork and back work and back-breaking work. So it's an honour to be near Percy French. I could just quote Pamela Brown's telling me about her grandmother singing "Where the Mountains of Mourne Sweep Down to the Sea." I think you can all think of your own. I was thinking of today, when is my first connection with Percy French, which I'll tell you later. My birthplace is Warren Point, County Down. I don't have the accent because, like a lot of Irish people, I was flung all over the world delightfully. But I was born where the mountains of Mourne sweep down to the sea. You check my birth cert. So to get into close reading without getting too academic or, spoiling anybody's lunch, close reading goes back to Samuel Taylor Coleridge. These are all people I worship and admire and read almost every week in order to keep myself going. He invented a thing, it's mentioned, called practical criticism in the Biographia Literaria, and it was taken up by I.A. Richards of Cambridge University, which we heard mentioned today, and taken up by William Empson. William Empson is a person who was in Dublin in 1982, and he gave a fantastic poetry reading, Totally Drunk. One of the most memorable poetry readings one has been at in the Mansion House. What a fantastic guy, drunken Englishman. So I'll move on from Pamela Brown is responsible for the captions, Rafferty's galloping biographical note, and we've come through a lot of Percy French's Biographia Literaria today, including the Jarvey. What is significant about French, it's difficult to classify him. Interesting that he drops the William, we've heard it this morning, and goes for the Percy. Percival, those of you who follow it, is a particularly vital what we call psychiatric practical myth for people who, anybody who's involved with these issues. It's interesting to me, I always associate Percy French with having taken that name, Percy the Norman, Dufresne, and the name Percy is a very strong emblematic name if you wish to use it. The myth of Parzival, it is of course the creative myth, but that would be a separate lecture. Edgar Allan Poe has a connection with Cavan, not quite Ballyjames stuff, but his great-grandfather was from Cavan. I'm just moving on to the list of poets whom we have evidence to prove that Percy French read these poets, if not in Trinity College, perhaps in these libraries. This is one of the great things about the traditional ascendancy. Strange for me to be praising the ascendancy, but it is interesting, these beautiful libraries, and a lot of these libraries are still available. This is French parodying Edgar Allan Poe, the great legend, the writer of The Raven, the writer of Ulalume, a poem I know practically off by heart. I could spend the rest of the lecture just reciting it for you, but stay on topic, Kevin. He puts in some history into the Poe poem, but evil days, rebellious factions, rose on fair Hibernia's isle, bribery controlled their actions, honesty gave way to guile. I'm not going to make any political statements. It's a lovely thing, isn't it? The musical element, the Houston Colliston element. Personally, I think it's provable, not only if you're in America, the United States, when you hear the French songs, the Percy French songs, let's face it, it is an emotional charge. Even that line always grabs a person like me. I will wait for the wild rose. Who's waiting for me? It is emotional stuff. My mother once told me that when I was born, the day that I first saw the light, I looked down the street on the very first morn and gave a great crow of delight. If you want to go down the road of practical criticism, micro-criticism, and what they call nano-criticism, looking at the dwarf element in each word, behind each word, Percy can be parsed the way Ovid can be parsed, the way sonnets can be parsed. It's not for me to get into the tradition. Is he a poet? Is he a verse maker? He's certainly a songwriter. One of the most significant things recently is the great debate in academia when Bob Dylan, who we all know, received the Nobel Prize. There was a continual debate. It's great to have the debate. Is Bob Dylan a poet? Is he a verse maker? Is he a balladeer? Is he a songwriter? Dylan, as was pointed out to me by Pamela Brown the other day, mentioned, he said, no, I'm just a song and dance man. So this is one of England's poets, Algernon Charles Swinburne. Those of you, I have a complete works of Swinburne. Fascinating, obsessive, musicological type poet, beloved of people, particularly people like Joyce, and it goes into the modernist tradition. Undoubtedly, this is on French's list. Edgar Allan Poe, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Algernon Charles Swinburne, Walter Scott, William Wordsworth, Thomas Babington Macaulay, of whom I will not make any comment, Tennyson, Alfred Tennyson, Robert Browning, the great Robert Browning, the great. I hope to God some of you are reading Robert Browning. He's fantastic, the late Victorian Robert Browning, and Rudyard Kipling, of which I will not make a comment. So this is Wordsworth through Percy French, Little Bo Peep. I walked with her upon the hill, her grief was very deep. Her tears were running like a rill, for she had lost her sheep. They're good, they're witty, they're good. There's lots of them, and they're tá siad isteach and leabhar sin. My French is faulty. Maybe it's because I'm a Dubliner. I won't sing Maybe It's Because I'm a Londoner, you know it. It is fascinating that he's a purveyor and inventor, the music hall tradition, the Victorian tradition, putting French songs together quite easily, and interesting, the Dublin Up to Date irony, and the Night of the Road, that he just is the banjo man, and that he took the part of isn't it interesting? He took the part of Jack Feeney. I think it's quite a point to make out how do you gloss his politics. My suggestion would be to myself, not to you, is that suffering through Irish history, as one has to, It's good to take the Percy French option because he came through all those eras that we've heard mentioned today and managed to make these songs out of it. So it's the healthier option, isn't it? This is his first. You know this too well. His first when he. My position of French is that he's in a tradition of Oliver Goldsmith, who also not quite dropped out of. Goldsmith was thrown out of Trinity College. Thrown out is a polite word, because he just became a musician. A lot of people in the arts scene, a lot of students, they come in, they're creative, they find the curriculum is stifling, and they go their own way. French was like that, but he had it both ways. It's good to see that one is always saying to students, you must finish your degree, even if you want to join the circus or become a juggler, finish your degree. It goes back to, he's certainly in this tradition. These, of course, are fantastic songs. Danny Boy, McCushla, and Thomas More. Spa Cottage are publishing in the autumn Thomas More political poems. A third of Thomas More's writings are about politics, political satire. Extraordinary work. And it goes back, I'm sure there might be proof that you go back to the high, I could shout it out, tradition of the Irish Aisling. The psychotic, visionary, supernatural tradition of the poet having these visions. This, of course, is all debunked, but this is all true to Pierce Ferreter, Geoffrey Keating, Sharon Keating, whose history, Forrest Vassar Earn, has quite a high title. It really means the burgeoning genius of the Irish. It sounds a little bit like Irish American, but he had to be on the run while he was writing it. Egon O'Rahala, Gilla na Gilla, one of the most extraordinary poems written in Europe of that time. Ursula Vaughan, Sean MacDonald, and on to James Clarence Mangan. Do not sigh, do not weep. The priests are on the ocean green. They march along the deep. There's wine from the royal house upon the ocean green, and Spanish ale shall glad thy heart, shall give thee health and hope. My dark Rosaline, my own Rosaline. French himself has Gert na Mona. Poets will say to you, come on, Gert na Mona. Is Gert na Mona a poem? It's up to you, choose. It has the Frenchian melancholia and the lament for the dead. It's a poem, some kind of a poem. What the heck? Have you been to Skerries? Skerries is a most magnificent place to, I won't say anything too controversial. I meant to have a glass of wine and stare out of the lagoon. So it is quite a beautiful thing. You can see directly, as they say, on a clear day you can see forever. When you're in the lagoon, just off they don't call it the high street in Skerries, you can see the beautiful mountains, the Irish Himalayas, whichever one mountains in Ireland you love. The verb is brilliant, isn't it? Sweep. They sweep down to the sea. Come on, this is poetic. Come on. Another Pamela Brown image here. This, of course, is the pain and the suffering and the emigration and the Irish-American wake. I'm not going to make any political statement. The point is that this is part of James Joyce, the famous misquoted quote by John F. Kennedy, where he said the Atlantic is a bowl of bitter tears. It was actually Stephen Dedalus and Ulysses looking out on the Irish Sea. I won't use the word Irish Sea border. The tent might fall down. But he's looking out at the Irish Sea, and he talks about the Irish Sea as a bitter bowl of tears. Just a reference to recommendation. If you look at Cutting the Corn in Creeslaw, the emigrant's letter, it's an epitome for close reading of the complexity of all the French lyrics. They all have a narrative. In the emigrant genre, they have the narrative. It literally begins, Dear Danny, and it gives you a fantastic situation that this woman who's writing the letter to Danny would have hoped her friend would have gone with her on the ship. It's interesting the French is buried in Merseyside, isn't it? Because that was where you have to leave Dublin, go to Mersey to America. Up on deck, Quebec, check off all of Percy French's lines with a red biro. Excuse me, I'm not giving an academic lecture now. But you can see the whole narrative, and here's the irony. When you were on an emigrant ship in the 19th century, did you get a 6-course meal? Did you get a choice of wine? Here's French. So here I must stay, I've no cause to fret, for their dinner was what you might call a banquet. For though it is sumptuous, I'd swap the whole lot for the old wooden spoon and the store-bought pot. And there's even more which has lost her friend Katie back in Creeslough. Those of you who know Creeslough, you drive up to Kilmacrannon, get up to Creeslough. Donegal, one of my favourite counties. For Katie might think as the longer she waits, a boy in the hand is worth two in the States. And I won't spend too long because C.E. Trevelyan is obviously a great friend, a person that I worship nightly. No, I'm just being mockery here. In the Tim Pat Coogan book about the famine plot, you will find C.E. Trevelyan's, I'll do this slide in 1 second. You'll find C.E. Trevelyan's 1843 essay, which is put over 2 parts into the Daily Chronicle. It gives a depiction of Ireland. Trevelyan needed about 25, 26 security guards, and he was going around. They were going from inn to inn, hotel to hotel, checking the number of people who might come up into a rebellion, what Max Caulfield calls an insurrection. And we mustn't mention 1916 to Max Caulfield. But it is a fascinating article because most of it is about the fact that he gets no sleep. He mentions all the counties he goes through, and he does say things like those blank, 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 Irish, blank, 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 writing songs, singing songs, bellowing out songs. About 4 o'clock in the morning, we still do it. And he says that this is the most dangerous thing. This is the most dangerous thing in Ireland. Could we stop the broadsheets? Could we stop the ballad sheets? Interesting how this happened recently with regard to a particular, what we might call, group of musicians. I will not give names. Percy is about the townland. I won't say that I came in today and wept, but I have never been in this district, and I did want to come across it, and I wanted to see it. He's the townland, the village, the one street town. I mean, Strokestown would not, in my estimation, be the type of town that he can fall in love with. He wants the one street town. There is the anecdote of him staying in Drumcolliher, staying in the pharmacy. All of the people you can certify and prove, these are people he met. These are not fictional characters. They're the ordinary people. This is not to do with politics, it's to do with humanity. And the great thing about it is you have to mention the king now and again, don't you? We can't offend anybody. The king. I was over in London quite lately. I gave King Edward a call. Says the butler, he's out. He isn't about, and I don't see his hat in the hall. But if you would like to look round, sir, I think you will have to say, apartments like these are not what one sees in your country every day. But of course your man from Drumcolliher says, well, have you ever been to Drumcolliher? You haven't? Well, I declare. We've only one house in Drumcolliher. This is a fantastic thing. If you look at Martin Heidegger, the philosopher, who also came from a very small village in the Schwarzwald, Germany. Yvonne was back from Bavaria on her holidays. She can tell us all about the Schwarzwald. But I'm not mocking. They had a beautiful holiday there in Bavaria. They've Guinness. They've their own porter in Bavaria. I'm gone off subject. But the interesting thing is that the particular Drumcolliher person will not be impressed by Niagara Falls, the Taj Mahal, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. He'd say, we've gardens in Drumcolliher. I have a garden out the back. There's some cabbages, a couple of potatoes, a bit of radishes. You'd never see a garden like that. This should be revived, shouldn't it? Here's another idea, dare I say. What a great idea for the Percy French Festival. Kevin's getting out of order now. If they introduce a lyric parody workshop section where people are in the big top and you can write your own parodies of the song. You've heard of Kevin Finnerty from the town of Ballymuck. We're going to be in court now next week. But the Golden Years is the those of us who've seen it. It's what they call these people, Gilton and Rogers and Alaman. It's still running in some of the amateur dramatic things. If you were in the kind of schools that I had to be sent to make sure I'd behave and be a law-abiding citizen, you would find Miss Bergen saying, "Now, boys, the golden years." So out would come the book, and you would be doing that famous West Clare railway scene, and everybody would want to play Percy French, and nobody would want to play the judge. It is talk to our Hollywood friends. You could have a Hollywood version, because the Joseph Locke movie was good, but it's not as big a legend as Percy. So this comes back to it. Just one point, I'd recommend you all Caroline Elkin's book about the railways in India. I know you're all going to leave the tent and rush to Waterstones and buy a copy. It's an extraordinary book, and it explains quite accurately not why the West Square area, but why we have to be very polite to the British. We have to be very, very polite to the English. I mean, it's very important, even though I have an Irish passport. The railways were deliberately designed so they would not work because of Max Caulfield's great word, Kevin, insurrection. So this is the reason why even I know, who have never driven a steam engine, but we all love them. There's a fine clamp of turf in the bog there, and the rest go gathering sticks. You cannot run a steam engine on turf and sticks. It won't blank go. Even in the Midwest of America, it won't work. And then in the other verse where they say after 3 hours wait, if we wait for another 2 hours for the turf to dry, this of course is a political comment. Turf will not dry in 2 hours. It will not dry. This is Percy's heavy irony. This is the way you can read a lot of the lyrics. This caption by Pamela Mary Brown is of Percy French. You can see him. He's wearing a top hat, and he's on the West Clare Railway. And how you can prove this is an original caption is if you turn around the valise on the seat, you can see his initials, WPF. It's amazing, isn't it? There's the railway line. Same for the Southern railway system. Maybe in 50 or 80 years' time we get all these railways back. It would be fantastic, wouldn't it? Because the Donegal system is all in place down through Barnesmore Gap. Wouldn't it be great to be drinking wine on the way to Ballyshannon? Slattery's mounted foot. They're not military people. Here's the reason. They're people who go to the pub. They don't exactly pay for all their drinks, so they're 2 rounds short, if you check the lyrics. And it's pretty. Slattery is the elder brother. The gallant corps were organised by Slattery's eldest son. This, of course, gives you the political background. He's a single-minded poacher with a double-breasted gun. Now, Kevin, don't talk about guns. And then they're in the pub and they see this sign, all liquor must be settled for before the drink is served. But of course they're saying to that sign. And then when they run down the town, they run towards the RIC barracks, where their cousins are probably working as policemen for the king. And then they run back and they jump over a ditch into a gate, and they see trespassers prosecuted in accordance with the law. It's one of them big 15,000 acre estates, and you know what they do? Anyway, the 4 Forellis, if you want an account, somebody tell me about the time, somebody either throw me out, shoot me, or take the tent down. This is the account of Percy French putting Ulster, always a dangerous word, isn't it? Even if you said Ulster, people would say, what do you mean, Kevin, by Ulster? What do you mean by Ulster? Ulster, Connacht, Munster and Leinster. And he has the same stereotypical persona throughout the long. It's a 3.5 page poem. It gives you a cameo history of Ireland, because French's works, as we've seen today by these excellent scholars, you can get a cameo history from the Jarvey and all of his publications. You can get a cameo history from his song lyrics. And this is the one, of course, that we all need to celebrate. That river needs to be moved up to the Ban. I've always said that for years. They need to move that Boyne River. I'm going to help. I'm going to get shovels. We're going to move that river up into Belfast. The boy who used to bother me, that Orange Lodge to join, and thought that history started with the Battle of the Boyne. Oh, if you're the Francis Farley who came from North Tyrone, here's looking to you, Francis, but you leave the Pope alone. No comment. Do you know who's a brilliant English poet? Alexander Pope. Fantastic. You can never be in Ireland without talking about Yeats and Maud Gonne. Yeats's poem is interesting. It's interesting that Percy French was given what we call in the art scene a couple of nights at the old Abbey Theatre, the beautiful old romantic Abbey Theatre. O'Casey, Sing, all those fantastic. They're fantastic people, aren't they? Augusta Gregory and her barmbracks, saying Mr. Yeats only had 4 slices of barmbrack and then left in a half. So Yeats is to Ireland in the coming times. Know that I would account it be true brother of a company that sang to sweeten Ireland's wrong, ballad and story, round and song. Professor Roy Foster, he's not here. Roy said to me, Kevin, there's no history in Yeats's poems. What the heck are you talking about? But, hello, we'll talk again on the phone, Roy. The Ireland's wrong is Ireland's history. And of course, who is not in love with Maud Gonne? I was brought up well, but then things went downhill. I don't know. We've had some of this quoted today. This is from the Jarvey. And this, of course, is the monarch. Maud Gonne called her the famine queen. Awfully insulting, isn't it? And we've had the French. It's interesting that French, through the mouthpiece of Victoria, small woman who was a woman who used to wear one of those things in her head. My English is not great. I can't remember what they were in there. But it mentions French polishing. And this is a picture of Victoria, and I'm not allowed to comment on it. But what he puts in her mouth is interesting when we think today about Punch, the Jarvey versus Punch. Those of you who have seen, I have a copy of the edition which depicts people in a particular island as a pathology. And of course, at the time, being a student of Charles Darwin, who's now been refuted, Darwin's concept of people descending from the ape and from the baboon, it became a great huzzah or hurrah to depict a certain race as baboons. And I tell you what, says she, they may talk a lot, says she, and them farting baboons, says she, may draw their cartoons, says she, but what they can't draw, says she, is the lion's claw. And before our flag's furled, we'll own the whole world. They did for a while, but history moves on. Not allowed to mention Brexit. Not allowed, Here's our friend. Is there anybody greater than James Joyce? Bernadette Lowry's book deserves to be huzzahed, hurrayed all over the world. Sounds of many mirth on the night's ear ringing. Joyce creates a new language. Finnegan's Wake is the longest prose poem, probably will never be equalled. I recommend it to you if you suffer from insomnia. It is a fantastic, I read it during the day. It's the most beautiful, beautiful, beautiful epitome of his work. Bernadette says, what the heck, let's agree with her, that the central character, because it's a series of riddles, is none other than Percy French. And at the end of the first chapter, set in a pub in Mullingar House, down by the Liffey, Percy is told to come up. You can see his name is Percy and he's O'Reilly. Come back, Paddy O'Reilly, to Belly James stuff. And there may not be time to recite it. I'll go back if there is. Phil the Flute, or Sean O'Casey took, flute are good. Just one thing on the big song. It's not one of the biggest songs because there's other songs. What has always been intriguing to people in the academic corridors, I'm not a particular fan of the academic corridors, but one has to make a living now and again. The thing that's most interesting, the ladettes of London town, this of course is a picture on the right, is that the depiction of the women in the song. I'm going to stay chaste, as Maddox Ford said about one of his novels. It's a chaste novel. it's a very interesting departure. And then the other thing, which is an interesting, ironic departure, who are these ladies who don't wear no top to their dresses at all? How come the speaker and Peter O'Loughlin, where do they meet these people? There's extraordinary Freudian psychology that if of those roses you venture to sip, the colours might all come away on your lip. But the most extraordinary irony in it is that you remember young Peter O'Loughlin, of course. He's over here now at the head of the force. No, he's not. Go through a close reading. He's directing traffic. He's not the High Commissioner of Robert Peel's police force. Here we go. There's more songs about women. Ring a bell, throw me out, tell me the time. There's more women parsed right through it. These are the Gert Namona and Irish Mother. There's a whole list of them there. And the Banshee theme. And then I'm nearly finished. Maybe it's good to maybe be finished on time. Here's an interesting point. Anybody ever been up around Fox Rock? There's a beautiful bench up there to, of course, Mr. Samuel Beckett, one of our fantastical people. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot can be looked at and read as the two dispossessed guys on the road and the landlord. Kevin, you were told not to use the word landlord. The landlord and his gilly, who's on a rope. It can be seen as a... I'm not allowed to say these things. There are more plaques and commemoratory locations to Percy French in this green and blessed isle than anybody else, isn't it? I mean, he's a considerable fellow. Then you move on. Here's another interesting thing. Carlin Blackwood and Robert Lowell, a poet, American poet I particularly admire. He and Caroline Blackwood got involved in a liaison and had a child together. None of our business. When she began to write about it, she's from County Down, Cunday on Doon. And of course she called it For All That I Found There. And then A.E. George William Russell, somebody who one has to read every night, or at least every week, every day of the week. I'll try and think of a few lines by him in a minute. If you go to the Oriel Gallery and talk to the people there, they often have launches with lots of bottles of wine and lots of cheer. You'll get the latest price figures on the Percy French watercolours. His stage act, of course, was a phenomenon. It was a complete phenomenon. He's been compared to Danny Kaye, if you remember Danny Kaye, L.A.G. Strong. Robert Graves' father was a particular connection with Percy French. These people saw him for what he was. He would sketch, he would draw, Houston Colliston. They would have other people singing on stage. And I can't think of the AE. There's a bit of occult going on here. I wish I could think of the AE lines. So I think I can end with this. These are the titles from Spa Cottage. This is about Kevin Kiely, poet, critic, author. Throw him out. And then a French toast. I'll go back here for a final word from... Brendan, come up here. Brendan Behan. Brendan was in Paris. And he was at Le Deux Magots, the old literary hangout. And Brendan insisted on calling it the Two Maggots. Real Brendan stuff. So Jean-Paul Sartre, il arrive Jean-Paul Sartre, et Simone de Beauvoir, et le découvre par la philosophie de existentialisme et féminisme. So Jean-Paul arrived in with the cigarettes, you know, and Simone de Beauvoir, and they gave a 2-hour chat to Brendan. Jeez, I wouldn't drink a glass of wine. Would you get me a fucking glass of whiskey? Jesus, will you hurry up and get it me? So for 2 hours, they gave out on existentialism. Magnificent work, you know, Lettres et Léon. It is a magnificent work. And Simone de Beauvoir, beautiful French stylist. All the French writers are better than all the Irish writers. We have to accept it. But they're smoking their Gauloises, and Brendan has his whiskies and his packet of cigarettes. I'm going to get off the stage after this. And Jean-Paul says, Quelle est votre pensée suivant sur mon discours pendant l'existentialisme? In other words, what are your thoughts on existentialism, which I have purveyed, you know, most eloquently and with all my genius. And Brenda went, dropping the cigarette, a big look at the whiskey, and said, John Paul, would you ever give us an old bar of a fucking song?
Okay, thanks. Thanks to Dr. Kevin Kiely for that very entertaining presentation, and it certainly puts us in an uplifted mood for lunch. If anybody, again, has any comments, you're very welcome to contribute. So perhaps we're going to move on with that. Thank you very much, for, Dr. Kevin, and we're going to...
Or I'm going to do the lawns now over lunch.